Welcome to the ArmaniTalks Show, episode 26. I'm your host, Armani Talks. Within the show, I'm covering a range of topics from public speaking, social skills, emotional intelligence, creativity, and much more. If this is your first time checking out one of these episodes, I drop it on the first day of every month. You definitely want to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're listening from YouTube. And don't just subscribe, hit that bell notification too so you always stay updated. If you're listening from podcast, be sure to leave me a review once you're done. If you're listening from Twitter, X, whatever they call it, be sure to leave me a repost as you are listening to today's talk. This show is centered around communication skills for engineers and entrepreneurs. And as of late, I've been talking more about different tips on how to improve one's career. Recently, I wrote this newsletter, which was The Rise of Email Forwarding Jobs. And this newsletter was inspired because there was this one guy that was complaining a lot. He was like, I just feel like I'm not making much of an impact. So I continued to hear him out. And he said, most of my job, it's just me forwarding emails to different teams. I'm not creating anything. I'm just forwarding emails. And as he's whining about this, eventually I find out that he gets paid a lot of money to forward emails. He's getting paid over $135,000 a year. I'm thinking, what exactly are you whining about? The reason he's whining is because he is not too sure about how to explain what he does to others. He's like, whenever someone asks me what I do for a living, I don't even know what to say. You know what I would say if I was him? I would say that I get problems solved. That's it. And if people want more details on that, I can give them more details. But if you think about it, most jobs nowadays, uh, white collar jobs, that is, a lot of the things have been automated to a point where you're either clicking buttons or you're getting someone connected who can click the right buttons. That's it. So there's no reason to be ashamed of what you do for a living. There is this one thing that I've noticed where a lot of blue collar workers, they will ask their white collar peers, what exactly do you do for a living? And the white collar people, they can't necessarily articulate themselves in a way where it is understandable to the other person. The blue collar worker can easily do that. They can easily say something like, I install hardwood floors for a living. They're very tangible. Where with white collar workers, they'll say something like, I analyze Excel spreadsheets in order to get some sort of narrative that I can present to the stakeholders. That may make sense to you because you're in a white collar job. But for a blue collar worker, they'll say, I still don't know what you do for a living. I mean, what are you doing in those 8 hours? Are you just on Excel the entire time? And this is when a lot of the white collar workers, they get self-conscious. Where I always say that you need to have an elevator pitch for what you do. This is a question that is never going to fully disappear. It doesn't matter if you're starting a business, if you're working a full-time job, people are always going to ask, what do you exactly do? And they're not necessarily asking this in a rude way. They're asking this in a way where they want to see if the grass is greener. I recall when I went to Las Vegas a couple of years back, I had a Uber driver who was so close to being a doctor, or he may have actually been a doctor, but he quit the entire medical lifestyle to be an Uber driver and a Lyft driver. And the way he was marketing it seemed so unique. He was like, I get to wake up whenever I want. I don't have a boss. I can create my own hours and I make a good amount of money. Now, people are always come to Las Vegas, so I'm busy year round. And I asked him, well, what do you exactly do? I mean, is it what it seems like? I mean, are you just driving people around or is it something deeper than that? And he's like, man, I'm just driving people around and having great conversations. Even though he did not sell me to be an Uber driver, I was curious because if he said something like, I'm pulling in $10,000 a month being an Uber driver, then I would have at least listened because around that time, I was making roughly $5,400. Not that much, but if it's 10K, and now he's speaking my language. So people will often ask you, what do you do? because they're wondering, is this a field that I can explore? There was this one guy on TikTok recently who used to be a pool technician. Whenever people's pools were not functioning the way it should have, they would call a pool technician, which I just figured out was even a position. I never knew about that. And he didn't like being a pool technician. Who would? I mean, he's not getting paid that much. He's working in the hot weather. And he was one day talking to one of the people whose pools he was fixing. And that guy, I believe, was a cybersecurity engineer. And the pool technician was like, well, what exactly do you do? The cybersecurity engineer began to explain it. And then the pool technician was like, maybe I can do that. Years goes on by, and nowadays the TikTok channel that the pool technician used to do, he used to be a pool technician, but nowadays the TikTok channel is based on cybersecurity. He made his dreams into a reality. So people will often ask you, "What do you do for a living?" Because they're saying, "Is there more opportunity for growth for me?" Now, if you're someone if who is curious about what someone does, you definitely want to frame it correctly. If you ask the question like, "Well, what do you do all day?" They will feel irritated and they'll come off defensive. They'll say, "Well, I do a lot. What do you do?" Even though that's not how you meant it. Even with content creation, for example, some people will often be like, "Well, Armani, what do you do all day?" And when I hear it like that, I'm thinking, "Well, what do you do all day? Well, why are you asking it to me like that?" And they're naturally curious. I think the better way to frame it is, what does an ideal day for you look like? This is a, way more approachable way in order to frame this question, because you're not really asking it in a question. You're making them not the target anymore, but rather their day. And that's when they'll say something in a very gentle way. They'll say, "Well, most of the morning it's about me checking my emails, making sure that I'm updated. Later on, it's about me having some meetings." And I'll kid you not, if I did my job correctly, then I'm not too busy throughout the entire day. And then they'll start explaining more and more, and you're gaining more intel. With social skills, especially in the corporate space, it's a lot about how you frame things. If you frame things in the incorrect way, then you will annoy people and you'll never have a clue why. You'll just think, well, what did I do? I was just curious, and they ended up getting mad. People get mad for the strangest reasons in uh, the corporate space and in social skills. But since we're talking about the corporate lifestyle right now, one time that people get mad a lot, it's in these meetings when they're being disagreed with. And this is something that you want to understand. With a lot of these meetings, sometimes people do know what's going on, but for a lot of these meetings, people have no clue what's going on. And if you're a subject matter expert, you need to raise your hand first and think of what you're going to say second. Where a lot of subject matter experts, these introverted engineers, these introverted or overly shy professionals, they know that someone is saying the wrong thing in the meeting, but rather than trying to disagree with them and correct them, they keep wondering how their tone is going to come off. And when they keep over analyzing what they're going to say, eventually they don't say anything, and that's when the big mistake is continuing to play out. That's why it's very important, especially in the workspace, to raise your hand first and speak second. When you raise your hand first, automatically the attention is brought onto yourself, and then you will be surprised by how well you can formulate certain ideas. People may disagree with you at first. Don't back down so quick. Get in the habit of finishing a thought, and whenever someone counters you, don't just say, "Okay, that makes sense." Think about what they said, pause, and then articulate yourself back. And this is a muscle. This is not something that we are used to doing. So, this is something that you definitely want to keep working on. And the more that you keep working on it, the better that you will get. In the corporate space, you will see that there are times when someone has no clue what they're talking about, but they keep talking. You think they know what they're talking about because they keep talking. And this is one way to make yourself known in the company. You just talk a lot. And it could even be certain questions that make others look a tad bit silly. You could say, they'll give you an update, but then you ask a question in a way where you're like, are you sure this update is fully accurate? And it forces them to answer, and it makes you look more like a subject matter expert. I'm not saying you should do this. I'm just saying that if you see certain things like this happening around you, now you know why. Uh, Worst comes to worst, just ask more questions. Just make yourself heard a tad bit more in meetings. This is why I believe companies they should do a better job of onboarding people. And nowadays companies are so bad at onboarding people or they don't even try. A lot of these companies, what they do is they'll hire someone new and they'll just leave that guy solo. The manager is never going to try to have a meeting with this new guy, never gives them the why behind their job. The manager just disappears. And now this new employee, he has to fend for himself. And if the team is good, the team is going to try to do what the manager is supposed to be doing. The team is now going to train this new employee. They're going to be giving this person certain insights on how to do the job. And hopefully, this new employee, they show that hunger and they continue these meetings. A lot of modern corporations, they just skip the training portion and they just hope that you figure it out. Or with the blue collar lifestyle, they at least train you. They have a thing called the apprenticeship. And once you even start a job, for the first 2 to 3 weeks, they are training you until you get certified. Once you get certified, that's when they'll let you do your own thing. But in the white collar lifestyle, they don't train you. They hope that you figure things out. And by the third month, your manager, they'll come to you and they'll ask you a weird request that you have to be somewhat of an intermediate to advanced person to understand. And if you're so completely clueless, they completely forget that they didn't train you at all. All they remember is, wait, when did you start again? Didn't you start on the beginning of January? It's already March. You still don't know how to do this? All they remember is when they hired you. So if you have one of these high job titles, it's more important than ever to willingly learn. You need to get in that habit of educating yourself. Now, educating yourself is somewhat easy if you're doing it by yourself, where you just need yourself and the computer. But it becomes harder when you're dealing with a team because you can't just rely on the internet anymore. You have to understand what are the processes and protocols of your team. And this is why it's important to have these follow up meetings with your team. The more that you have these follow up meetings with the team, the more that they are going to explain it to you. And it's not just one follow up meeting. You need to make this a consistent thing. You need to make it seem as though the person who's teaching you is one of the smartest people ever. In one of my companies, when I was getting trained by this one lady, I would hype her up so much. I don't know if she was married, but I would always say it like, I would always say stuff like, "Man, you are such a smart person." I knew she had two daughters, so I would always say, "Your daughters, I mean, they must be lucky because you are always solving problems for them." She'd be like, "No, no, Armani, no, no, of course not." I'd say, "Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're smart. You are a really smart lady." And then she would do stuff like, give me insights about her background. And she loved hearing that because she was outside of the work force for some time. And now she wanted to train me more. So even though my manager didn't train me, I was still getting trained somehow. And the more that I started to learn about the role, that's when my manager was getting surprised. What I would recommend if you started a new role is learn way more than you have to. What an ideal first week looks like you are introducing yourself to the different team members. The different team members are introducing themselves to you. Then you want to start asking them really big drill down questions. And the only way that you can do that is if you read every email that comes into your inbox, even stuff that doesn't make sense, start making rules for your Outlook, which is the email server that most companies use. And then just start reading as many of the emails as you possibly can. If you can read the SharePoint, do that as well. And now you're at least building the fluency. You're understanding the language that the company operates on. And now, when you ask the different team members questions, it- they're not going to even think smart question, dumb question. They're going to think, he has a question? Man, he's so early. I remember when I started, I barely knew nothing. I didn't know anything, but this guy does. So you want to hit the ground running because I'm telling you, man, for whatever reason, these companies, they don't train anymore. And it's such a pet peeve of mine. You know how much more effective companies would be if for the first week, the manager is just saying, hey, just sit along with me. Okay, just bring your chair right next to me and just see what I do all day. And the manager is explaining the why behind why he's doing certain things. You know how much more efficient the employee will be rather than the employee just being given random commands. He's just figuring stuff out willy nilly, and it's just not the right way to do things. When you run your own business, I believe it will make you a great worker. And you may think, well, if I'm starting a business, why am I also going to get a job? Maybe you're in the beginning parts of your business where you need funds still. Uh, if you're living in Silicon Valley, for example, you can pitch an idea to investors and get money from others. But if you're living more in the South, there's not angel investors just walking around left and right. You most likely have to still earn your income. And you can earn your income by doing something like Uber, Lyft, some sort of freelancing, or you just stick with the job. And once you start your business, you understand what it's like to hire people, fire people, what it's like to see a project all the way through. And these are tangible skill sets that make you a better employee. These are different ways to train an employee because it bothers me when employees are labeled as dumb or they just don't want it bad enough, when in reality, it's the management that has no clue how to properly train the employees. And I'm not talking about the type of training where you send them off to a different state to learn about the company culture. That does nothing for the employee. The employee is probably sleeping through those lectures. What they really need to do is get a training session on what their day to day activities are going to look like. And the way that you do that is you start off with the why, and then you begin to explain the day to day tasks. Um, you explain the what second, explain the why first and the what second. That is how you teach effectively. A lot of employees, they have great uh, ceilings. It requires different prodding and poking to see what they are great at. There are people that are great at just being reliable, but behind the scenes. You don't want to make an overly introverted person into a great speaker unless they want to be a great speaker. You don't want to get a great speaker and force them to learn the engineering aspect if you can have them do client communications. Why bother? See, that's the thing with being a leader. A big part of being a leader is just to spot these invisible stuff, these hidden nuances. And the better that you're capable of noticing the invisible nuances, the better off that it will be for you to lead. Great leaders are often born from agitation where they've been annoyed before because maybe they were the shy kid and people would always talk over them. Maybe they were the overly angry kid and people would always just be like, hey, man, just calm down, calm down. They're like, I don't really like it when someone tells me to calm down when I'm angry. Maybe they were the overly sensitive guy and people are like, hey, stop crying so much. These great leaders, they've had moments of pain, but rather than just absorbing the pain, what they did was they took this small step right before, which was they were capable of articulating why this particular thing bothered them. And when they figured that out, they made the insight that it could also bother other people. One example that I would give you is, and I made a talk about this a long time ago on the Armani Talks YouTube channel. I talked about how there was this one day when I was having this group conversation with others, and there was this guy to the left of me who kept edging me out of the conversation. His back constantly just kept facing me. And I was having a great conversation with everyone. But when he kept edging me out like that, because he was getting so enthralled in his story, I remember I pushed him. And he stumbled and tumbled. And then he pushed me back. I pushed him again. And we're almost on the verge of fighting. And then he just like, yo, Armani, why are we fighting again? I was like, it's because you edged me out of the conversation. And he had no clue that he was doing that. And that's when I noticed that I felt really annoyed when someone edged me out of the conversation and just had their back facing me. And that's when I learned that it's not smart to do that. Whenever I'm having a group conversation, I'm actually very mindful of just backing up. Um, I'll just give you a social tip right now. If you're in a long dinner table and someone is sitting in the corner, that person hates to sit in the corner. No one likes that seat. The equivalent of sitting in the corner of a dinner table is sitting in the middle in an airplane. No one likes that. You don't want to sit in the middle, especially in the middle of two fat dudes. You want to sit on the window side or the aisle side. And in dinner parties, people often want to sit in the middle because conversation is just flowing around them. Where people who are sat in the corner, they're really relying on the person that's sitting to the right of them to be socially intelligent. But if the person to the right of them is just turning their back on the person that's sitting in the corner, the person sitting in the corner is pretty much bored for the entire dinner party. That's why it's very important to just back up a little bit. When you back up, now this other person is capable of flowing with the conversation. And you want to willingly bring this person into the conversation. You don't just want to back up and that's it. Every now and then, when you see that no one's talking to this person because he's at that physical disadvantage of sitting in the corner, you bring him in. You like, hey, bro, didn't you also go to that school? And then, boom, a conversation is happening right across from you. See, these are the invisible stuff where you need to have a little bit of common sense to put two and two together. Same with introductions. I've seen people do the worst introductions and it bothers me. It's like if you want to introduce people, what you do is you don't just say someone's names and just fall back because who cares? Now this person knows the other person's name, but that doesn't introduce. You need to introduce and integrate. What does that mean? Let's say I am going to introduce Jim and Melanie. I'm not just going to say, hey, Jim, this is Melanie. Melanie, this is Jim. I'm going to say, Jim, this is Melanie. Melanie, this is Jim. And here's the thing, both of you guys work in IT. They both work in IT. I just created a bridge between them. And since I created that bridge, now they're capable of having seamless conversation. Whenever there's gaps in the conversation, that's when I'll jump in. And I have introduced them and integrated them. So you don't just want to say, "Hey, this is Jim," and you just stand there like a dummy. You need to throw out commonalities between them, and that is when great conversations happen. That is the mind of a power connector. If you're not great at socializing, then get in the habit of introducing people. Just understand that the main thing that's stopping you from getting that bigger paycheck, getting more opportunities, is that is a human. It's not these automated processes and all of that. It's one human that has to eventually make the decision to introduce you, make a decision on your behalf. Do I give him that higher role or not? It really comes down to people. So most of business, most of life in general, it's about communication skills. Think about your dreams. When you dream, do you ever just dream about an object the entire time? No. The object may be there, but it always includes people. All of your dreams always include people. And this is when you're not thinking. So at your default level, everything comes down to people. And in order to deal better with people, you need to be more mindful of these small things that people often can't articulate. The guy that's in the corner, they don't necessarily know why it's bothering them that they're sitting in the corner. But now we know. We know that it's bothering them because they're in the corner and people aren't really talking to them. They only have one person to the right of them, no one to the left of them, depending on which corner you're sitting on. And now they're really reliant on this person to be socially intelligent and keep them looped into the conversation. So, social skills is not something that is completely random. If you understand the basics, it's something that has a lot of logic and science behind it. So introductions we talked about not physically edging someone out of the conversation. Another thing that I've learned recently is the art of being polite. Uh, Nowadays, with certain content, you get rewarded for being very mean, very abrasive. But I would say that it's a skill set to be liked by others. It's a great skill set because you never know when it's going to come in clutch. And the thing is, if you're likable, you have no clue what you're exactly doing. You just show up and people are always saying, "Man, this guy, I don't know what it's about him, but I just like this guy. Invite this guy again." So you don't really know. But if you're unlikable, then you definitely feel that pain. I used to have this one buddy who got married rather young, and I noticed that his in-laws just did not like him. His wife to be loved him, but in the Desi culture, eventually you have to meet the wife's parents, and the parents just did not like him. And he was telling me this one day, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, how could they not like you? Do her parents know that you are the smartest guy in our electrical engineering program? Uh, you don't drink, you don't party, you always send money home back to your parents in Bangladesh. Do the parents know that? And he's like, yeah, man, but they still don't like me. And I thought, how strange. So he ends up getting married to her anyways. Time goes on by. She ends up cheating, actually. So they get a divorce. And now he ends up getting with another girl. Her parents also don't like this guy. And when he's telling me that this is happening again, now I'm starting to think, man, this actually happens to people. Because one of my cheat codes has always been, for whatever reason, uncles and aunties like me a lot. I think it's because I'm a very respectful guy. I'm not going to, be trying to get under their skin. I'm always complimenting their cooking. Uncles and aunties like me. So when I see this guy facing wrath from uncles and aunties, more specifically, his soon to be in laws, I came to understand that being likable, it's something that you can easily take for granted when you're good at it. But if you suck at it, you want all these little hacks and tricks. This is why one of the things, this is very controversial, by the way, but if you're a good looking guy, you should feel so good, man. You have this cheat code where people automatically, whether they're consciously aware of it or not, like you. Like when you're a good looking guy, people will just see you and they will think, man, for some reason, this guy seems as though I need to know him. When you're bad looking, people have the exact opposite perception. And mind you, this is something that is not the politically correct thing to say because unfortunately, a lot of people they don't have the face card. They're not that good looking. They're not in the best shape. If you're not in the best shape, then I have no sympathy for you. If you don't have a good face, then as a guy, it could be tough for you. But if you don't have a good face, but you have a great body, most people are not noticing your face anymore. I've seen this happen so many times where guys, their faces, it looks kind of like Sasquatch, but then they start hitting the gym. They start getting muscular. They look good, their body at least, and you just can't notice their face at all anymore. I think if you're a guy, you should be getting obsessed with building your body. You should be learning as much as you can about how to lift properly, what to eat, find foods that you can stick with long term. Find different ways to get obsessed with your body. Learn the science of how muscle building works. Learn the science of how fat loss works. Get as obsessed with your body as you possibly can because that is one thing that is always within your control. When you have a good body, people don't mess with you that much. Uh, People look at you and they think, man, this guy's big. I don't want problems with him. Hey, little guy, hey, let me start problems with you. But a big guy, they don't want problems with them. This is one of the reasons there's a civil war that happens with a guy and his body. It's the lean look versus the bulky look, where when you're bulky, you feel powerful among men. When I was 200 and I would say 15 pounds, when I walked into a room, I just looked at the other men and I thought, man, not only am I taller than all of you guys, I'm also bigger than all of you guys. If worse comes to worse, I could beat you guys up if I wanted to. Subconsciously, I'm thinking that, not consciously. I'm not going to beat you up, Anand. Don't worry about that. This is the perspective of someone who's big. But when you go into a room full of girls, a lot of girls, they're just looking past you. Guys will hype you up, but girls, they think you're too big and they start saying ew a lot when they see you. And that's when you start to think, how about I get lean? How about I do some fat loss? And now you're starting to get lean. And getting lean requires way more discipline than bulking for the most part. I do get it. For some people, it's tough to gain weight. But for most individuals, leaning down, it's so difficult. It requires consistency. It requires good habits. You can't be going out that much. You got to get your sleep. It requires so much dedication. And eventually, the girls are looking at your way a little bit longer. But that's when the guys, they start to give you the dreaded S word, small. Hey, buddy, what happened? You're looking a little small. It stings, especially if you've bulked before and you're that guy, that big guy, and now you're lean and you look good with your shirt off, but with it on, people can't tell that you work out. People just think, oh man, what happened? The guys, at least, the girls are hyping you up, and now you're stuck. You don't know if you want to be lean or you don't know if you want to bulk up. And I think this tension, this civil war, it's great for lifting more in the future because during that span, you're going to learn so much about nutrition, your ideal look, what type of clothes you want to wear. You're just going to learn a lot during that turmoil that will set you up for the future. That knowledge, no one can ever take away from you. Most of these guys that are in great shape, they're nerds as well. They know the science of triglycerides, glucose, glycogen, all of that stuff. And you're not above that either. I think you should understand the basics, and you don't have to know too much. You could easily be too much of a nerd. Or there are these TikTokers that I see, they just are so unrealistic. They're just like, well, I can't drink this because it has food coloring, or it has this, it has that. I'm like, dude, we're not all trying to eat from the farmer's market, or we don't all have money for Kroger's or Whole Foods or whatever the heck you are promoting today. We're just regular people. We go to Walmart, we buy our food there. What can you give me from there? And then they just talk your ear off with so much science, so much process stuff. I just say, just shut up. I don't want to hear all that. Just tell me what I need to know. So don't be so much of a nerd that you're talking people's ears off and you're just being a buzzkill. You're going to dinners and you're asking people, well, what kind of seed oils was this cooked in? Bro, shut up, man. And you could logically always explain that. But these guys are so annoying. They're so irritating. They're such picky eaters where there's this beauty to getting in great shape with the minimal effort, where you're not in the gym for 3 hours. You're in the gym for 15 to 30 minutes. You're not getting 50 different ingredients to make your meals. You just get 7 to 10 ingredients to make your meals. You're not struggling to get through your meals. You're actually excited. There's this pull towards your meals. That's the sweet spot. And that's something that I noticed people who do fitness for a living, they just can't translate it properly. Fitness people are a lot like overly nerdy engineers, where when you're way too much of a nerdy engineer, you lose the purpose of why you're an engineer in the first place. You are an engineer within uh, a business. And businesses, they don't really care about Python, Java, C++. They don't care about those technical languages at all. All they care about is your code doing what it's supposed to do to help the client. That's all they care about. But a lot of engineers, they get too obsessed with their technical knowledge and they start to explain their technical knowledge a little too much towards the business people. And if the business people, they don't care, then the engineers are like, they just don't get it. And they're talking with their other engineering pals as if they're smarter than the business people, not understanding that the business people and the engineers, they specialize in two different things. Similarly, with a lot of these fitness guys, they talk your ear off with all this nonsense. They don't understand the life of an average person who's just trying to lift some weights and look better. These are the fitness guys that are going to win in the future. These minimalist fitness guys, the guys that can factor in Walmart into their diet plans. Give me some ways that actually, as of late, I'll give you a little hack. Maybe if I get in amazing shape, I could do stuff like this where I could give you these little hacks. One hack to give, especially for if you're a professional you hate cooking or you don't have time cooking, you don't mind cooking, but you hate cleaning. If you're under that bucket, you want to go on YouTube and type in no cook meals. And you'll see a lot of these different ideas on meals that you can get where rather than cooking anything, it already comes cooked for you and you're just assembling. If you're just assembling, now that's dummy proof. And I am so busy in my life where I don't, right now, I don't have time to spend 40 minutes cooking every night. And you could say, well, what about meal prepping, Armani? Why don't you do that? I get meal prepping, but just the way that my taste buds work, I'll meal prep a lot of stuff on Sunday. But by Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm just thinking, man, I really don't want to be chained to that meal prepped food. It's good, but right now, today, I'm feeling something else. So I like that freedom. So meal prepping is a little tough. I can't cook every single day. So I've been doing this thing called no cook meals where I'll get uh, these different items like grilled chicken from Tyson. Everything's already cooked. The entire bag has 150 grams of protein. So I'll eat that whole bag plus some pasta, the vegetable pasta that's already cooked for me. That also has 20 grams of protein. The entire meal is 1,700, 1,800 calories, 180 grams of protein. It has a bunch of fiber. Boom, I'm done. I didn't spend so long just cooking, seeing the little oil spatter all over my kitchen. Now, after I'm done cooking, I need to wipe my floors, wipe the stove. I need to clean my dishes. I don't have to do all that. Another hack I can give you is get paper or plastic uh, plates, or what's it called? Paper plates. Get that. Get plastic utensils. And once again, the nerds, they're going to come to me. Armani, you're really using plastic utensils? Yep. It's easy. The easier it is, the better. And then once I get my meal, I'll just eat it and throw it in the trash or just get a glass plate. I mean, that part's not a big deal. But I'm so lazy nowadays where if I have to air fry something and microwave something, that could be an issue where I would prefer that I put everything in the air fryer or everything in the microwave. I don't want to engage both things. And nowadays, I prefer the microwave a little bit more because with the microwave, I don't have to clean as much. Where with the air fryer, after I'm done using it, I have to clean it. It only takes one time for your finger to get a little burnt when you're trying to clean the air fryer for you to have this negative connotation towards the air fryer. I still use the air fryer, but it's just these small little things where you just want to keep eliminating the clunks and you want to make it easy for yourself. So it's called no cook meals. You're not cooking, you're just assembling. And if people give more ideas like that, I think this is a sustainable way for people to get fit. I mean, when you're getting fit, you don't have to focus on that many things. It's just a couple of the basics. You want to go to the gym and lift very heavy. Each week, if you can, just lift a little bit heavier weights or just do one extra rep, 1 to 5 extra reps. Push your body, right? Your goal is to go in there, get out. Just lift as hard as you can. After that, it's a lot of nutrition. I just focus on three things. I focus on calories, protein, and fiber. For me, I get 2,200 calories, 185 grams of protein. And for fiber, it really depends. I try to get 20 to 40. And you could easily do that if you get one of those keto breads or one of those Quest protein bars. They have 15 to 20 grams of fiber. Just keep it simple. I see people who don't know how to read the nutrition label. They're looking at every little thing. I'm like, dude, you don't have to look at everything. And don't listen to these fitness guys, these nerds that talk your ear off with all these stuff. Who knows? Maybe one day these words will come back to haunt me, and one day something happens to me. It's because I drink from a plastic water bottle. People are like, "See, we told you, bro. We told you," but it hasn't happened yet, and I'd rather not live in fear, and I would rather enjoy what I'm doing. If I can't enjoy it, then eventually I'm going to feel a lot of clutter with it. In my book, Level Up Mentality, I say that one of the easiest ways to supercharge your learning is to make things fun. If you can make things fun, then it will help you out tremendously. I'll give you an example. As of late, I've been switching up how I write blogs. Before, when I used to write blogs, I would type everything. And I'm a numbers guy, so I understand how long certain things take. For 1,000 words for me to write a rough draft, it took me 12 to 14 minutes. Now, guess what? Me speaking the blog into existence, it takes 6 minutes. I save so much time. And I like doing that. I love talking my blog into existence rather than typing. If you have a Windows right now and you're listening to this, just click Windows H at the same time and it'll turn on the voice recorder. And now you just click the voice recorder and you speak your blog into existence. Once you have that, from there, you can go on a tool like ChatGPT to fix up the typos and all that. And boom, you have your blog. It's fun. Nowadays, I look so forward to writing a blog. Uh, and that's because I grew with the times. You will have certain processes for a while, and then you just want to blow up that process and start something new. Ultimately, though, the blog is still getting published. It's just how I'm creating the blog has changed. So you don't want to be one of those guys that has a great routine for you, but for a while, you're not necessarily liking how the routine is going. So rather than blowing up the task, blow up how you do the task. Same with reading. For certain parts of my life, I love reading paperback books. I feel excited just holding the book and reading through it. But other times, I just don't like holding that paperback book. I start to criticize it more, thinking, why is the word so small? Why are the words hitting all the way to the spine? Why is this book so poorly formatted? Rather than quitting reading, I just switched to the Kindle. So I still am reading, but I'm just switching up the mechanism on how I do it. This is a productivity hack, and this is how you keep leveling up. You want to keep fun as the compass, because if you hate doing certain things, sure, you can showcase discipline and do it anyways, but it just makes it tougher for you. Discipline doesn't have to be boring. Discipline could be a fun thing to do. And when you make it fun, it's as though the activity just flows out of you. These talks, they're an hour long. I would dread it if I'm over here writing the entire script out and just reading it verbatim. I don't like doing that though. I like to practice my impromptu speaking skills to see where the talk will take me. Before recording today's episode, I had no clue what I was going to be talking about. And since starting today's episode, there are so many unique concepts that have already been discussed that I can turn this long YouTube video into multiple shorts. So you want to keep fun the compass. When fun is the compass, that's when there's desire. And desire allows for a lot of things to happen. And once you have that initial desire, you could quantify things later on. Have that initial desire, and things become fun. Now, with that being said, what is fun for one person is not always fun for another person. Relaxation is subjective. I've been talking to a lot of people recently who use movies to unwind. I hate watching movies by myself. To me, that seems like torture. I'll watch movies in the movie theater, but I'm not going to watch movies by myself at home. That's not relaxation to me. Relaxation for me is watching YouTube videos where I'm not committed to any YouTube video. If I'm bored with one thing, I could just switch to another one. And this is me hopping around and feeling relaxed. My brain is off. Movies. I've been loving movies ever since I got the AMC Pass. There's the theaters called AMC, and they have a movie pass that you can purchase for roughly $24 to $26 per month. And this allows you to watch 3 movies per week. This is probably one of the best deals I've ever had in my life. Every now and then I'm thinking, man, is this deal real? Because if I were to just buy an individual ticket, which I did before I had the movie pass, one day I bought a Mufasa ticket and it cost 18 bucks. So one ticket cost 18 bucks and it was IMAX. That's why it was a little bit more expensive. But I could watch 3 movies a week, which is 12 movies a month for 24 to 25 bucks. Doesn't it mathematically make sense for me to get the AMC pass? It does. But despite it making mathematical sense, I began to be a pessimist initially. I thought, do I really want to do this though? Am I even going to watch 2 movies a month? AMC is right by me. And the answer is yes. I am definitely going to watch at least 2 movies a month. At that point, I could have just stopped talking and just gotten the pass because mathematically it made sense. If I didn't get the pass and I individually went to 2 different movies, it was going to cost $30 minimum, and that's already more than the movie pass. Luckily, I was convinced to buy the movie pass. And once I bought it, I can't believe what a great deal it is. An amazing way for a couple to bond as well. Because when you're married, let's say you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't party, uh, the amount of things you can do for fun, it's narrowed down. And one way to have fun is to watch content together. Content bonds people, and this is a great way to just have a date night out of the blue. Hey, how about we just watch a movie and we'll grab some food there and you guys just bond. Don't listen to these self-improvement guys that are way too intense. They'll say, well, don't watch movies because movies are a waste of time. What are you learning from that? First of all, you could learn a lot from movies. You'll learn what to do versus what not to do. And if you have a YouTube channel, a podcast, a blog, if you create any type of content, watching movies is good. I mean, I should watch movies by myself. I just don't. I just get bored with it. Martin Scorsese, one of the most iconic film directors of all time, you know how many movies he watches per day? Three. He watches three movies per day, which allows him to see what's good versus what's bad. And the more that he's capable of distinguishing between the two, the more that he can lean towards making great content. Same with me. Ever since I got the AMC Movie Pass and I've been watching these movies, I think, man, there are so many different ways to learn storytelling. There are different ways you can build characters. There are different ways you can introduce conflicts. Some movies, they're just too boring. They try to be super artistic and they end up being boring. They're not entertaining. Let me avoid that. Other times, the movie will suck for 98% of it, but the ending is amazing. And when the ending is that great, I want to watch more movies. Three movies a week, that's a lot. I can't even do three movies a week now. But when I do, that week, I'm just filled with ideas. I keep thinking, if I was a director of that movie, I would have done this instead. This is a great way to build your storytelling skills. And I also have a book on storytelling. It's called The Art and Science of Storytelling by Armani Talks. Uh, if you can't find it on Amazon for whatever reason, just go on my website, ArmaniTalks.com, hit shop, and you'll see The Art and Science of Storytelling there. I talk about watching a lot of movies and then do this one trick. What would you have changed? And this isn't something you have to logically think about. This is something that will intuitively present itself to you. Once it presents itself to you, articulate it out loud. I was watching this movie yesterday called My Dead Friend Zoe. Overall, I got the shtick that the movie was going with. Yet, it was too boring. If you were to ask me, Armani, what would you change about the movie? I would say make it more entertaining, make it funnier. Don't make it such a dry movie where it felt like an hour and 40 minutes. On the flip side, I saw this other movie. It was called The Brutalist, and the movie was 3 hours and 30 minutes. It didn't feel that long. It was an epic. I loved that movie. Well done. What would I change about that? Nothing. I think that movie was good enough where I don't have anything else to add to it. Maybe just make it a tad bit shorter. 3.5 hours. Come on, man. That's a tad bit too long. It was an epic, though. It never felt like 3.5 hours. And this is one of those situations where I don't want to fix something that's not broken. I enjoyed the movie. I thought the acting was great. I thought the story line was amazing. Just keep it the way it is. But if you force me to say something, I would just say play around with the times. I've noticed as of late, movies roughly 1 hour 30 minutes is a sweet spot. When it's creeping into the 2 hour realm, it doesn't matter how great the movie is. Eventually, I'm yawning and I'm thinking, okay, it's too long. I want to do something else right now. 1 hour 30 minutes, that's the sweet spot. I've been building this fluency for movies ever since I got the movie pass, and I've been recruiting people to it. I say, hey, you should think about getting the movie pass. And whenever people fight with me on this, it bothers me because I see them getting ripped off. Dude, you go to the movies 3 times a month, you're already spending way more than you would just with the monthly pass. For whatever reason, they're stubborn. And then eventually it clicks. Have you ever had that moment when you're giving someone advice and you're logically explaining it? You're taking your time. You are hoping that you're doing something for someone that you wished they would have done for you. Uh, and you're doing your best to just say, dude, come on, man, I'm just giving you the game right now. They're not paying attention. And then years pass on by, and finally they begin paying attention, and they don't give you the credit. You think, hey, man, I'm the one who told you to do this. One advice that I give a lot of people that are content creators is write the books, sure. Eventually, you want to get the books in multiple formats. Don't just have an Amazon book and that's it. Get that Amazon book, make an audio version of that, upload it on Ingram Spark, Draft to Digital, Google Books, and much more, and then convert it to Spanish, convert it to French, convert it to Arabic. Think long term with that. These guys, they don't listen to me. They just have one book, which makes them revenue. I'm saying, dude, you could make a lot more revenue, man. Why don't you just listen? They won't listen for a long time. And then one day, this guy will discover a webinar that's literally saying everything that I'm telling them to do. Then one day they'll call me full of enthusiasm. Hey, Armani, I'm thinking about getting that one book and turning it into an audiobook and getting it into Spanish, blah, blah, blah. Thinking, dude, I literally told you that 3 years ago, and now you're just doing it. Just give the credit, man. That's one thing that you'll see in the real world. People will give you advice. You will be stubborn. You won't listen. And eventually you will do exactly what they were telling you to do. But now your pride is involved because we, as humans, we don't want to hear, I told you so. Because my buddy, who's now converting all his books, if he tells me that and he says, you were right all along, Armani, what he would hate to hear is, I told you so. You don't want to say that either. I know parents often do that, kids often do that, friends do that with one another. But when you're saying, I told you so too much, you're incentivizing them to never give you credit. If you just say, well, I'm glad you picked up on it, and then you just keep it pushing, then it teaches you two things. One thing is that it teaches you to be thick skinned. Because back in the days when I would give someone advice, I know it's right for them, and they're not listening, and then they end up doing exactly what I told them to. It would bother me a lot. I felt a tad bit disrespected because I thought, why didn't you listen when I initially told you to do that? What made you listen to this guy and not me? And I would overthink it, where it's never that big of a deal. They just didn't listen to you for whatever reason. Forget about it. Just forget about it. That's not something that you're in charge of. So it teaches you to be thick-skinned. And another thing it teaches you to do is build your social skills. It's very similar to when when someone has a story that they want to tell you. You already heard this story. Let's say when Luka Doncic got traded, but people are so full of excitement. They're just coming to you. They want to break the news. You don't just want to say, I know. Occasionally, you want to let them break the news to you and you want to be surprised. Wait, what? Really? No way. That's another one of these invisible social rules that I would say you should adopt. I was actually saying this recently where I don't like it when I ask someone to guess something, and rather than guessing a reasonable amount, they'll guess something over the top. For example, uh, let's say let's say I was waiting in Taco Bell to get food for a while, and I'm thinking, man, I'm waiting a really long time. Taco Bell, it's fast food. I should have gotten my food 10 minutes max. But for whatever reason, a bunch of things kept breaking, and it took me 45 minutes. Now, for the most part, 45 minutes, it's a pretty long time to wait in fast food. And if I go to most people and I said, I waited 45 minutes, they will even say, dude, that's a really long time. So I used to have this one roommate. Whenever I would say, guess how long it took me, he would always give a preposterously high number. So the number that I was going to give him now just seems minuscule. So I'd go up to this guy and be like, Sam, guess how long I waited in Taco Bell for? He'll say something like 4 hours. All right, man, 4 hours. Like you actually think I waited 4 hours in Taco Bell? So Then he'll say, no, then how long did you wait? And I'll say 45 minutes, which if he never said 4 hours, 45 minutes would have gotten that reaction like, well, 45 minutes? But now since he said 4 hours, and now after I say 45 minutes, he says, oh, only 45 minutes? Dude, 45 minutes is a long time. You just always got to get cute with it. And you always have to say this overly high number. Some parents do that too. The kids will come up to the parents and say, Mom, Dad, I got a raise. They went from making $65,000 to finally hitting $100,000. And they'll say, guess how much I'm making now? And the parents will say something stupid like $285,000. Kids will say, no, I mean, I'm making $100,000. And now the parents, rather than thinking about the $65,000 to $100,000 jump, they're thinking, oh, so you're not making over 200K. This is a pet peeve of mine. That's why whenever someone says, hey, guess how much I bought this shirt for? I'm not going to say a penny. I'll say something like $20. And they'll say, no, man, $7. They feel good expressing that. This is the smart thing to do. Every now and then, you actually have no clue at all how much it costs. That's why you say a number and they'll say, nah, it's actually this. But if you know, for example, if you buy a lot of shirts, you're not going to say something stupid like a penny. How often do you see a shirt for a penny? So this guy got a deal. The shirt was actually $50 and now they had to spend $20 and you say a penny. It seems like they got ripped off because they spent $20, but in reality, they got a great deal. Don't be annoying. A big part of social skills is don't be annoying. Learn to ride the waves a little bit. And this is what builds charisma. Being likable will open up a lot of opportunities for you. There's a lot of individuals that talk about being polarizing, a little too polarizing, which I get it. There's a time to be polarizing. Other times you want to be likable by accident. You want it to simply be an extension of you. If you're trying to be likable at the risk of sacrificing your principles, then you're not really likable. You're a nice guy. You have no principles. But if you're someone who is highly aware of certain social fundamentals and being likable is something that just happens by accident, you have no clue what you're doing. That is when you are winning in life. And if you want to learn more about how to be likable, how to be a charisma king, you definitely want to check out my book, The Charisma King. Within this book, you're going to learn much more about different characters within the social world, different tricks on how to be likable. But more importantly, you don't have to learn too many of the tricks because you're going to be given the fundamentals of all likable people. Being likable, it's the difference between you making okay money in life versus you making a lot of money in life. And I get it. Life is not just about money. It's also being a good parent. Your kids want to talk to you. Your siblings want to talk to you. People just people respect you, and every now and then when they see you, they'll say, "Hey, dude, what do you think about X, Y, and Z?" They'll bounce more ideas off of you because you're this warm, charismatic personality that people want to know on a much deeper level. So we are about to wrap up today's talk. If you enjoyed today's talk and you want to get more episodes like the ArmaniTalks Show, you definitely want to hit subscribe. Every single month, I drop a brand new episode. These are 1 hour long. And within the 1 hour, you're going to get interesting short stories. You're going to get lectures. You're going to get funny anecdotes and much more on different ways to improve your social skills, your public speaking skills. With soft skills, it doesn't work with dry facts. It needs a certain narrative. And the way that I try to teach with these narratives, it bypasses your logical mind and it engages your heart. And once the heart is engaged, that's when behaviors seamlessly modify. This is how people learn, and this is how people become more charismatic in the future. If you want to get a lot of my books, my blogs, my YouTube channel, my podcast, different ways to connect with me, my Instagram, all of that is consolidated in one spot in ArmaniTalks.com. This website is where you will see anything Armani Talks related. This is my pride and joy. So the most exclusive stuff you will see on ArmaniTalks.com. And if you like the content on ArmaniTalks.com, don't forget to subscribe to the Armani Talks free daily newsletter. Every single day at 7 p.m. EST, I drop a brand new newsletter to help you with the different aspects of life that will make you better with people. Go on ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter and subscribe today. Thank you very much for joining me. Good luck with March, and I will catch you next time.